Well, Black History Month is really important. I mean, we're here next to the statue of Martin Luther King, who spoke at Newcastle University a few months before he died. Growing up in Newcastle as a kid who was really interested in politics and international social justice, I did not know that. I didn't know that Martin Luther King had visited my hometown. I also didn't know that the world famous abolitionist and freed slave Frederick Douglass had lived in Newcastle for some time, and I didn't know that there had been African soldiers garrisoned on Hadrian's Wall. So why that matters is that as an only black kid growing up here, seeing, knowing about those kind of examples, those stories, would have made me feel less alone. It would have given me ways of responding to some of the racism I was experiencing, and it would have also made us understand better as a city. I think our shared history. We have a shared history which is diverse, and there's so much to be proud of. And so by understanding, knowing the stories, the stories of black contribution and the black stories around Newcastle, and that is really that makes us more of a stronger and more integrated community. Right. So the Black Lives Matter campaign, what I think it's really done has been to put the issues, the challenges, the discrimination, the racism that still exists, it's brought it into the fore, because people weren't talking about it so much. And the sight of George Floyd having the life strangled out of him by a police officer, a representative of the American state, funded by the American state, for 9 minutes, that atrocity highlighted many other sort of experiences of African Americans in America, but also around the world, the racial injustices. And so here in the UK, where we have a very different police force, for example, but there are challenges in racism and lack of representation that we face here. And so it was that sense of a global movement addressing local issues, but together in solidarity, and black and white people coming together, because this is all our challenge, and this is something we've got to work together to eradicate racism.
And just following on from that then, so what do you say to all those people who say, well, all lives matter?
Well, I think that that's Black Lives Matter is predicated on the fact that all lives matter. It is black people, African Americans in America, for example, who have been so disproportionately dying from police violence. It is black people whose lives are being cut down disproportionately by COVID as well. So the Black Lives Matter movement is not saying that white lives matter. I mean, it's like saying, if I say my house is on fire and you go, oh, but lots of houses are on fire, deal with that. Yes, let's do that, but deal with this house that is on fire, which is the racism that is being experienced, and because it's holding us all back.
What has it been like for you growing up in the UK?
Well, Newcastle was it's a fantastic place to grow up in. I had 100 yards down the street, I had a fantastic school, state school. My mum had cancer. She was the RVI and the hospitals here saved her life. I was housed in a council house, of which we have far too few now. So there were many and there was a strong community. There was also we were the only black kids. Me, my brother, and my sister were the only black kids in North Kenton, estate where we grew up. There was a lot of racism. There was a lot of ignorance. The police certainly did not take that seriously. It was just expected that people would shout, names at you and smash your window every now and then. So there were those were real challenges. I was fortunate that I had, my really loving family, and also teachers who were great and supportive, and never experienced sort of racism from teachers. And also, that there was a real movement in Newcastle in the northeast against the National Front, as they were, and those sort of people who were telling me to go back home, wherever that was, and whether they thought that was, my home was in Newcastle. And so, so I experienced, if you like, I'd say I experienced sort of the best of sort of the collectivism that is the northeast, but I experienced a lot of prejudice as well. And I think it's really important that people like myself who have achieved a sort of a degree of success make it clear that I experienced racism, I experienced bullying. It is not, it's not the end of your life or your world, because you can surmount it, and should always report it, And I would say that, now I'm a strong. Well, I would say, it's a challenge, it is a struggle. It is not fair that you are being called on to face racism and prejudice, and that you are not alone. Report it, find somebody, a Black Lives Matter network, your MP, if I'm your MP, report it to me. The police, hate crimes, charities, there are lots of organizations, report it and make yourself empowered about it, because, it's all on all of us to eradicate racism. And if you are experiencing racism, there is a wrong being done to you. It's not your wrong. Do not internalize it. There's a wrong being done to you, and we need to work together to eradicate it.
And Black History Month isn't just, I guess, about recognising the inequalities in society. It's about celebrating the outstanding achievements as well. Who, as you've been growing up and even now, have you had any role models, people who have inspired you over the years?
Oh yes, I mean, there weren't. As I said, I didn't know that Martin Luther King had been here to Newcastle, but Martin Luther King was an inspiration. I was also inspired by the role models. Unfortunately, came from outside the UK. Sort of Maya Angelou was fantastic in terms of her writings. Really opened my sort of eyes to to our sort of shared histories, and she had an amazing life. And then obviously the first black female politician, Diane Abbott. It was great to see her in the House of Commons as a member of Parliament. So yes, as time goes on, and now I tell you something. Now, my role models and my inspirations, a lot of young black women, particularly, who are standing up and speaking out and changing the world. And that is what that's what gives me hope for the future.
Great, thank you.